Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Broad Body Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Grant Taylor to be talking about his journey and experiences through art, creativity, and health and fitness. Dr. Taylor received his PhD from the University of Western Australia in Perth, Australia, and currently teaches courses relating to the art history, and drawing, especially in anatomical drawings, at Lebanon Valley College. He also teaches photography, printmaking studio, and a lot of other stuff. So again, he's a very busy guy. He's also wrote a book called When the Machine Made Art, The Troubled History of Computer Art, and has published countless other articles, essays, and gallery exhibitions. For more on Dr. Taylor, you can find him at the LVC, Lebanon Valley College, Creative Arts homepage. Grant grew up in a small town on the coast of West Australia and grew up windsurfing, scuba diving, and surfing. And as a result, health and fitness has really played an important role throughout his entire life. And he's been very busy strength training over the course of the pandemic thus far. So, with that, Dr. Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be a part of this and glad to see you again in person this time.
Yeah, for sure. The pandemic has certainly put a damper on things lately. But to start us off here, I mean, you've had some insane life experiences, from traveling around the world, publishing a book, getting your PhD. I mean, did I miss anything that you've done or accomplished? It certainly seems like you've done it all here.
I suppose that's some of the highlights. I did run with the Olympic flame too in 2000 in Melbourne. I failed to mention that. That was fun. The Olympic torch gets relayed around the country, and I was lucky enough to run a short amount of that trip, and you get to keep the actual propane torch because everyone gets one. And so my father has that back in Australia, and that was another highlight. And the reason why I was able to run with the Olympic flame wasn't because I was an athlete or anything. It was because I won a kind of competition. When I went to university, I worked in the bank as a part-time job as a teller, an everyday kind of job that everyone has when they're going through college or university. They got to get a part-time job, and they thought I was pretty good at that. And I was the company that consulted me out was called Adecco, and Adecco is a worldwide organization. So when they have a prize, it's a big prize. So that was the prize for being a diligent worker in the banks in Perth while I was studying at University of Western Australia.
That's awesome. Wow. I didn't know that about you. So we literally have someone who ran an Olympic torch here. That's a first. So obviously you went from Australia to the US, and somewhere along the line you decided to make art your passion and your whole career. So how did you get to the US from Australia, and what inspired you to pick up art and make that your life?
Sure. So since I was a kid, I was always interested in art. I was always painting and drawing, and I would go out into the desert and paint by myself. So my interest in art had been from a very young age. And as I grew up, that increased, and to the point where when I left high school, I went and worked for a couple of years, which is normal for Australians. They do a gap year before going to university. And then when I went to university, I studied both art history and art and got a BFA. But I was interested in both making art, but also writing about art. So art history was another passion. I loved traveling. I loved architecture. I loved art. So every summer we'd go to a new place, and it was ideal because I'd travel with my brother and we would surf during the day, and then the afternoon we'd go to museums or go to ruins in the afternoon. So it was really terrific. So my brother and myself have traveled lots of different places around the world. Been active in those places, surfing, but also sucking in all the culture that countries have to offer. But by the time I got to UWA is where I did my undergraduate, I was really just interested in art and art history, and I did my PhD in art history, and that's what resulted in the research that I did on computer art and early digital art that ultimately led to the book that was published in 2016. But yeah, I've had diverse interests. I've also made a documentary film and done installation art, light installation, performance, plus all the normal mediums of drawing and painting and what have you. So wide interests take you to different places, and so if you've got a lot of different interests, that's a good thing because it'll lead you in different directions.
For sure. It certainly sounds like you're kind of a jack of all trades and a little bit of a generalist, so to speak. You can kind of do everything. And it sounds like that world travel probably contributed quite a bit to your interest and development in art. Traveling the world, surfing all over the place, having a good connection with your brother. That's all incredible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I and working at LVC, Lebanon Valley College, you become a generalist because you've got to teach a lot of different things. So that does help if you've got varied interests. You can make sure that you can integrate, knowledge from different disciplines, bring lots of things to the table, especially in teaching. And your friendship with me results really from those two worlds, the art world and then the the kind of strength training world that you inhabit in PT. And so that's just an example of one of the great things about interdisciplinarity is that you can take things from different disciplines and join them together.
For sure, definitely. Now, obviously, as we've talked about, had amazing life experiences, and you are someone who's extremely successful at this point. Now, I'm sure that there's been some times where things weren't all smooth sailing for you. Maybe there were some obstacles in your way and you had to overcome things. What obstacles have you faced kind of along your personal journey to get to the point you're currently at? So far.
Yeah, I mean, everyone faces those obstacles, and I think one of the biggest things, if you're interested in achieving a lot and going after goals, being goal orientated, is that the fuel to that fire, that drive, often comes from the fear of failing, and the fear of failing often results in a kind of certain stress level that a stress that it kind of continues on through your day to day life. So how do you the trick is how do you balance that? How do you go after big projects and manage your stress? No, that's the thing that I've struggled with. I think everyone assumes that I'm going to complete a big project, but to do that, you have to put a lot of pressure on yourself, and that pressure will affect your health, it'll affect your relationships, and it'll over time, of course, it affects lots of different things. So, I would say the biggest thing is trying to manage the stress of being goal or project orientated and trying to achieve as much as you can in the roles you have, but not overwhelming yourself to the point where you damage your health through stress.
Right. You really bring up a great point there. A lot of great points, actually, is it's not just knowing what you have to do and knowing the direction that you want to go on, but it's taking care of yourself so that you can do those things. So it's not just, committing yourself to studying for an exam and forgetting to eat, not going to the gym, not sleeping. Like you have to do those things in order to optimize your performance in whatever you're doing, whether it's fitness, whether it's school or creating art or trying to be creative or surfing or windsurfing or whatever we're talking about. You have to start with optimizing your own health and fitness. And once you do that, I'm sure you've probably noticed that yourself that everything else just comes a lot easier.
Yeah, I do think once you know that your potential is opened up when you're healthy, right? That
Hmm.
you can do much more if you're healthy, meaning that you can deal with your relationships with your family and your loved ones, and you can take the focus that you need for a project, and you can execute that project. And so to do that and to do all those have all those roles and be efficient, your health has to be pretty good.
Hmm.
So you get more out of yourself if you have that healthy outlook, I think, definitely. But we're not always like that, right? So we go through times and periods where we're not as healthy, and our output is not as where we'd like it. But we just can't beat ourselves up over it, because life goes in a bit, like waves, a bit like COVID, up and down. um,
Oh man,
so and you can't really control often those cycles. So when you're not being as productive and you're not as healthy, don't beat yourself up over it. It's often just the natural cycle of life.
for sure. And I mean, those are lessons that I know that you kind of share with your students as well. Is, you're someone who says if you mess up, it's okay. You kind of have to fail once in a while in order to appreciate the learning process. Like if you're not making a mistake and everything is picture perfect all the time, then I think the question becomes, are you challenging yourself enough? And I think you recognize as well, like you've said, sometimes a little bit of stress is a good thing, because if you're too laid back and relaxed about everything you're doing and everything in life, then you kind of have to ask yourself, is this something that has some sort of value to me? If I don't care about the outcome whatsoever, then is this really what I want to spend my life doing?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, definitely. You can see examples where, if you're not pushing yourself and trying to do something interesting or take the next step, then you're going to have, something that is just okay. So the requirement to do something great takes a lot of risk, and rightly so. There's the stress involved, is a motivation, or is also the fuel, for that. It's just being able to recognize when that stress, or you put yourself under too much stress. So um, people that are goal orientated or highly successful often take too much on, and it's not until they get in later in life that they realize what they're doing, that they can say no to certain things. And that's a tough balance, but you don't normally see that until you get a little bit more mature. When you're young, it's just like, let's do everything, and but you've got to think about your mental health, and how you're operating generally. Are you happy? That's a key thing.
For sure. So, in general, your kind of big takeaways from this episode and things that you want people to take from it, would I be correct in saying you want people to kind of go out and experience the world, travel, go see cultures, and just go immerse yourself in experiences you haven't been in? And to realize that if you're goal oriented and want to be a high achiever, there's a certain level of stress that comes with it, but you have to manage and accept it and be responsible enough to not let it destroy you in the process.
That's right, because after all, you've got a long period of time, a long life, and you want to set yourself up for longevity. So you don't want to burn yourself out. And I agree, travel as much as you can, might be nationally or internationally. Sometimes it's difficult, like during COVID, and sometimes it's financial, right? But later on in life, you might have more financial capacity to travel. Uh, but yeah, open up to new experiences. I really firmly believe if you have a new experience, that will bring a perspective to your main focus, say your main discipline or your main vocation or your main career. If you're pulling in things from outside that, that's what really creates the innovation. So if you're just existing within your own small vocational space or your own discipline, you're not going to bring any of the magic that comes from outside. And so that's why we seek different experiences, and we seek things that may make us uncomfortable or push us, because those things are going to be the important ingredients to a kind of creative solution down the track.
For sure. And speaking of creative solutions, make sure you don't miss part two with Dr. Taylor. This will be released on Wednesday. This episode obviously gets released on Monday. And in part two, we're talking all about how creativity intertwines with health and fitness. So awesome stuff coming there. Be sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. And if you're listening on iTunes, be sure to leave a review. We do check those, and we really appreciate all the feedback. With that, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Brawn Body Podcast. Hope you have a great day, and we'll see you Wednesday.